One of the things that many clubs will need is the ability to allow other people to create accounts on the website and to give them sort of increased permissions on the website based on their user accounts. There are a number of ways to do that. But first of all, while we're on this page, I'm just going to show you where it is that people would be able to log in with their accounts, and it's in the same spot that you will log in as the administrator. In this theme, it's up here at the top. The other themes have it in different regions, but the concept is the same. There's a place for username and a password, and then there's also a link for people who've forgotten their password to request a new password be sent to them. And there's also a place by default where people can register for a new account. The settings in this default format do not allow people to create an account and have it approved without an administrator approval. So they'll be able to create the account, verify their email address, and then they have to wait for an administrator to basically approve them or unblock their account, activate their account. What I'm going to do at the moment is log in as the administrator and show you where you can adjust some of these settings in case your particular use is a little bit different than the default settings. Once you've logged in as the administrator, you should see the black administrative toolbar across the top here, and one of those options says user management. Everything we'll be talking about in this screencast is under that menu item. So if you go to user management and then user settings, you'll see how you can customize the default options for the way that user management is handled. So you can see the default select here is that visitors can create their own accounts, but an administrator has to approve them. Other options are that there is no public-facing way for people to create accounts. Only site administrators can create new users' accounts, and we'll be going through a couple ways that can happen in just a moment. And that the site administrator can create new accounts regardless, but the question is whether you want people on the front end to be able to request accounts or not. The last option here is that visitors can create accounts and they don't even need an administrator to approve them. So they can create the account, and then if this box here is checked, they'll have to click in a link that comes in their email to verify that the email address is valid and that they're not spammers who are sending this out by scripts and just trying to get access to whatever they can get. So I recommend keeping that box checked if you're going to allow people to request accounts. You have a spot here if you want to. You may type a paragraph on the registration page describing your user policies or anything that you may want to communicate to people who might be registering. And then down below here, all these things right here, this whole cluster of links are different templates that get sent. So in this case, the administrator creates a new user. You have the option to notify the person that you've just created the account, and this is the template that it will send from by default. So you can feel free to come in here and change this language, and you'll notice the little codes that come in here after the exclamation points. Those are all tokens that will be replaced with the relevant information. So exclamation point username will be replaced with whatever their username is, and so on. So there's a whole bunch of templates that you might be interested in modifying. The default ones are fairly generic and should work, but you might want to personalize them a little bit. And there's two main ways that the administrator might create accounts here. The first one is just one at a time. Under user management again, if you go to users, you have the option here to add user. So if I click add user, it comes up with a form here for me asking for what's the user's username, what's their email address, and then confirm their password here. You'll want them to be active, because if they're blocked, the user account is useless. That's for some rudimentary form of moderation if you have users who are getting out of hand and you need to work things out with them or whatever. You may want to block their accounts. Instead of deleting their accounts completely, you can block them so they don't have access for a little while, and then activate them again later. Down here under roles, we have two additional roles here besides just a regular old user that can log in. One of them is admin, and be very careful who you give this role to, because whoever has this role will be able to make changes on your website once they've logged in. So it's definitely a security thing, and you want to be careful about who you give that to. And the other role is member, and what that does is it gives additional access to the user to any materials, any pages that you've tagged as members only content. So a regular visitor to the website who's not logged in won't be able to see those pages just by browsing the website. And if they've logged in and they have this members role, then they'll be able to see the content that is tagged as members only. You have an option here to notify the user that you're creating an account for them, and it'll send them an email. I'll show you an example of what that looks like. So here again, whatever the username is, a site administrator at Soroptimist International of any town, which will be replaced with your information after you've updated the site information. Hopefully you've done that already. And gives them a link where they can log in, tells them what their username is and what their password is. Gives them a one-time login link. They can click here and be automatically logged in. So, like I said, they're fairly generic templates, but they give all the information that they need. So, if we come back to the website here, if you click to create a new account after filling this stuff out, it would create the user's account and notify them, assuming you checked that box. Now, if you've got a large members list, you might not want to do it one at a time and be copying and pasting each of these fields for each of these users. There is a way you can import a comma-separated values file, a CSV file, which can be saved or exported from Excel or OpenOffice or any spreadsheet. Basically, what you'll end up with is a file where the values are just separated by commas, as you might guess from the name. So in this sample file here, I've set up columns for username, email, and password, each one separated by commas. I've got the headers in the first row, and then I've created two users here, so test user 1 and test user 2. And what I'm going to do on the website now is under user management, go to user imports and then go to import. It gives you a browse functionality here. Find your CSV file and click next. It's going to upload to the server, and it's going to take a look at the first line of the CSV file, which it lists here. In my case, I have headers here to tell me exactly what they are. So I know that the first column is the username. And under username here, I'm just going to choose number 1. It gives you, you can see the numbers here, it gives you the options for more complex creation of usernames. If you have fields for first name and last name, you can say first name is the first part of the username, last name is the second part of the username, that kind of thing. In this case, it's just the only part of the username, so I'll just leave it as number 1. The email column I'm going to map to the email address, and the password column I'm going to map to the password. So this is basically telling it how to associate the columns from the CSV file into the website. The options here, I'm going to check the box to ignore the first line since I have headers there, and then if you don't have headers there, you can leave that unchecked, or it'll skip the first person otherwise. And I'm going to check the box here to notify or send an email to the users that their account has been created. If you're using more complex username rules, you can decide whether you want to include spaces in the username or just mash those fields together. In this case, it doesn't make a difference. And I'm going to activate the accounts immediately, so I don't have to wait for somebody to log in order to activate their account. In my case, both of these users that I'm importing are members of the site, so I'm going to check that box and it'll assign that additional role to them. It won't hurt to say it twice. Be very careful in granting an administrative role to users, because they can change your website. You have the option here to do a custom template to send to the users that you're importing. If you leave it blank, it'll use the default message that we've already talked about. And if you already have users in here, you can choose what to do, whether to do no update on a duplicate or whether to replace information or add information. In most cases, you won't need to use that. You have the option here to test, so I'm going to click test, see if it gets both of my users correctly or if it identifies some kind of a problem that I'd want to know about before I try to do the import. So the test comes back here. It processed two rows. 2 rows are importable and 0 rows have errors. So it's tested, it's ready to go. I'm going to click on import to actually complete the import now. And it's done. So there were 0 errors, 2 users were imported. If I go back to user management and users now, we'll get a list of all the users on the site, which are the administrative user, and then test user 2 and test user 1, which match up specifically to the usernames in my CSV file. And if all went well, we also received notification that the account was created. So it looks like everything went well. And that's how easy it is to import users as well. You can always come back to this user list under user management and users, where we are now, and either add a user individually or come back to the existing users and edit them. You can do some functionality just using checkboxes here. So for example, if these are not actually meant to be members, I can select them here and then remove a role from these members. So those 2 users are no longer members now. Or likewise, you can block or unblock or delete the users. I'm going to delete these just because they're not real people. And we should be back to the default just 1 user here.